Hello and welcome to News Review from BBC Learning English. I'm Neil and joining me is Catherine. Hello, Catherine.
Hello Neil, hello everybody. Yes, today's story, the remains of a Chinese rocket have landed in the Indian Ocean. Now for a while it wasn't certain where exactly this stuff was going to land.
If you'd like to test yourself on any of the vocabulary you hear in our programme today, there is a quiz on our website at bbclearningenglish.com. Now let's hear some more about that story from this BBC News report.
Weighing 18 tonnes and travelling at over 17,000 miles per hour, identifying exactly where the Long March 5B rocket will make landfall proved almost impossible until the last minute. Amid accusations of negligence, Chinese experts had asserted that the debris would likely land in the ocean, and ultimately they were proved right.
So the remains of a Chinese rocket have landed in the Indian Ocean. Now there had been some concern from some people about where exactly this rocket was going to land. They were worried about injuries. China insisted that the risk was very low, and as it happens, nobody, as far as we know, was injured after all.
Catherine, you've been looking at this story across the world's media. You've picked out 3 words and expressions which people will find useful for understanding the story. What are they?
We have debris, heats up and gamble.
Debris, heats up and gamble. Let's start then with your first headline.
Yes, we are starting with the South China Morning Post. The headline, China-US tensions move to space as rocket debris heads for Earth.
Debris. Broken pieces of something larger.
Yes, now interesting pronunciation for this one. The word is spelt D-E-B-R-I-S. Now Neil, you are a British English speaker, are you not?
I am.
So how do you pronounce this word?
Well, I think I say debris.
Debris, okay. You will also hear British English speakers saying debris. So you can say debris or debris, but if you are a speaker of American English, you will say, Neil?
Debris.
Debris. Notice the stress shifts. In British English, it's on the de or day, the first part of the word. In American English, it's the second part of the word debris, but the S is always silent.
Yeah, okay, so a bit of a complicated word here, pronounced in several different ways, but the most obvious thing is that we don't pronounce the S at the end. Why not?
Because it's a French word originally, as it goes, and in French words often the S isn't pronounced, but we have our British version of this word, debris or debris.
Yeah, interesting, this word is neither too formal or too informal. It's suitable for any use.
Yeah, you can use it anywhere, in any situation, to describe basically broken pieces of something that are often left scattered around after an accident or some kind of violent event. So after a storm, when the weather's really bad, there's lots of wind, there's lots of rain, you go outside, you will see rubbish everywhere, bits of trees, broken branches, kind of bins have gone over, lots of rubbish in the street after a storm. That rubbish is debris.
Yeah, and we can also use it in a slightly humorous way to describe basically a really messy place.
Yeah, you can talk about the debris that's left after a party. So it's not always natural disasters. It can be created, just mess that's created. And in this rocket case, they're talking about debris, meaning pieces of the broken rocket scattered around.
Okay, let's get a summary. If you're interested in stories about space, we have one about a rocket that went into space and came back, made by SpaceX. Where can our viewers find the story?
You can read about you can watch the recycled rocket story by clicking the link.
Okay, let's have your next headline, please.
Yes, we are now in the US, and our headline from CNN is China blames the US for hyping fears of uncontrolled rocket re-entry as space race heats up.
Heats up, becomes more extreme.
Yes, 2 words now. First word heats, H-E-A-T-S. The second word up, U-P. So the verb to heat up is a phrasal verb.
Now, Catherine, I know what to heat up means. That's what I do with my leftovers. I get them out of the fridge and I put them in a little bowl and I put them in the microwave and I heat them up. Is that the same?
To make food hot, yeah. No, it's not quite the same, but when you heat food up, you make it hot. You take it from a cold state to a hot state. Now, if we think about this more metaphorically, we often use the idea of getting hot or heating up to describe a situation which is getting more serious, more pressured, more anxious, more important, more tense, often more angry. So the space race is heating up. It means it's getting more intense, it's getting more serious, there's more pressure.
So we could use words like intensify or agitate.
Yeah, good synonyms, good synonyms. So if you think about yourself at work, you know, you've got an important meeting, there's a job to be done, the deadline's coming, more and more people are asking you questions about it. You know that if this job isn't done properly, there's going to be some problems. So you can say that the situation is heating up, or you can say that the heat is on.
Yeah, definitely the heat is on. And we use, as you said, heat metaphorically to describe sort of uncomfortable situations. If you can imagine something being too hot, you don't feel good.
Yes, exactly. Too hot to handle. We talk about that when there's a situation that is really serious and you don't want to get involved, or if you are involved, there's going to be trouble.
Okay, let's get a summary. If you would like to watch another story about a situation where things really heated up, we have the perfect one for you about the royal family.
Yes, we do. So just click the link to find out more.
Now time for your next headline, please, Catherine.
Yes, we are in the UK now with the Telegraph. China wins gamble after space rocket debris crash lands in Indian Ocean.
Gamble, a plan that has both a risk of failure and a chance of success.
Yes, G-A-M-B-L-E. Now, it's a noun in our headline, but it can also be a verb.
That's right, yes. And people probably know the verb to gamble connected to betting. So, you know,
yes,
casinos,
yes.
Horse racing, that kind of thing.
Yes, where you place some money on the result of something, a race or a game of cards, and if you guess or predict the result correctly, you get more money back. If you got it wrong, you lose your money. Now, the idea of gambling is about risk, isn't it? You take a risk. You might have a good outcome, you might have a bad outcome, but essentially you don't know for sure what's going to happen.
And that's the sense it's being used here, isn't it? It's not about putting money on something in the hope of winning more money.
No, it's about here, they're referring to the idea that it wasn't certain where this rocket debris was going to land. And the gamble was, will it land in the ocean or will it land in a populated area and cause some damage? Now, China said that this wasn't a big risk, but some other people said, well, actually, there was a big risk here. There could have been a lot of damage. And that's why they're saying China won the gamble because there was no damage eventually.
Yeah, we use set expressions with this as well. Take a gamble and a bit of a gamble.
Yes, absolutely. And it's where you do something not really knowing whether the outcome will be good or bad.
Yeah. Now, a person who gambles is a gambler, but that doesn't mean that this is a person in a casino or in a bookmaker's putting bets on horses. It can describe a type of personality that enjoys risk.
Yes, it can. Obviously, I mean, if you are a gambler, you can say, I'm a gambler, I like going to casinos, but you can also just use it about your attitude to life. You know, if you think, well, I'm going to do this thing at work, if it goes badly, there'll be trouble, but if it goes well, everybody will say, I'm fantastic. Then your personality type is you like a gamble, you're a gambler.
Okay, well, let's get a summary. Time now for a recap of our vocabulary, please, Catherine.
Yes, we had debris, broken pieces of something larger. Heats up, becomes more extreme. And gamble, a plan that has both a risk of failure and chance of success.
If you'd like to test yourself on the vocabulary, there's a quiz on our website at bbclearningenglish.com, and we are all over social media. Join us next week and stay safe. Goodbye.
Bye.